The Point of View is brought to you by Cowbell Coffee. Cowbell Coffee. Taste it, love it. Kel White Choco. Happy smile.
Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's an interactive show. If you like what you're hearing or if you have a question, please feel free to send us your thoughts on the WhatsApp number on the screen. We have a double-decker for you tonight. So you know that there's a lot of controversy within the health sector over the botched Sputnik V deal and the travails of the Minister for Health. We'll be speaking to our correspondent who's been following this story from the beginning to give you the latest. We know that the minister has been asked to go on a 2-week leave for personal reasons. We'll delve into all of that for you. But we also have an interesting story about a company that has been working in Ghana for 20 years with a very unique model of engaging their communities at a time where a lot of people are not sure what to make of the mining sector. I'll tell you more when we come back. Stay with us.
This morning,
nothing wakes me up better than a cup of Cowbell coffee. Delicious coffee aroma.
How can you forget your lines again?
I'm sorry, sir, just that it tastes really good.
Cowbell coffee.
Enjoy the delicious creamy coffee taste of 3-in-1 Cowbell coffee.
It's a beautiful day.
Waiting.
Cowbell coffee. Taste it, love it.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. So tonight we'll be talking two different things. We'll talk about mining, and then later on we'll talk about looking for a vaccine and the controversies around same. My guest for the first part is the President and CEO of Golden Star Resources, Andrew Ray. Andrew, great to have you. Good evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you. How are you doing? How is Golden Star?
Golden Star's doing well. I'm back in Ghana. It's always a pleasure to be back in Ghana. It's been tricky the last 18 months, as you know, moving around, but it's good to be here and spend a bit of time with some of our stakeholders. As you mentioned, Golden Star's been around for 2 decades in Ghana. I've only been around for 2 years, so I'm a bit of a newbie in that respect, still learning about Ghana and everything that happens here, and looking to really develop the business further. We've got an established presence. We've got a very interesting asset, Wassa, and a lot of plans and ambitions to grow that and become a bigger player in the sector in Ghana.
You are not one of the biggest. There are bigger competitors of yours in the sector, but you are 20 years old in the country, so at least you have a sense of where mining is. For those of us who are not experts in mining, where is the mining industry generally, and how is mining in Ghana doing?
One of the impacts of the pandemic, certainly for gold mining, and gold is what we produce, was that with all the uncertainty in the world, the price of gold went up about 20%, which obviously assisted our business and meant that 2020 for the mining industry in terms of gold was a good year. And that meant actually for the government and for contributions to Ghana, also a very good year at a time when economic activity in many other sectors was curtailed. Mining was able to continue. We had good support from the government, and we made a bigger contribution than ever last year.
So it was one of the silver linings for a very traumatic year for many people, because essentially when there's uncertainty, people go back to gold. So both as an industry and as a company, you would say 2020 wasn't such a bad year after all.
Yeah, if I look back, say, to when the pandemic started, and we were all scratching our heads thinking, how do we deal with this? And what are we going to do? To fast forward and look back and say 2020 actually was a uniquely challenging year, but I think very rewarding and a successful year for us as a business. We increased production through the year beyond our initial budget, which was very encouraging. We worked hard to manage the pandemic. So we put in our own protocols at site, we put in our own testing PCR machine, and as a result, we had no serious illness and no fatalities, which is the most encouraging.
Throughout the period?
Throughout the whole period.
No fatality?
No.
How many staff do you have?
So we have about 800 staff of our own and about the same number again of contractors. So
no
that's
kidding, so 1,600 people?
Big community, yeah. And we've had cases of COVID, but we've managed to catch them very quickly through all of the testing and the tracking that we do, and then get people the attention they need either in our clinic or in a hospital.
So you didn't have to cut or stop production?
No. As I say, the authorities, the community, everybody was very supportive to help the business keep going. Even when Ghana closed its airspace, we worked with the government and some of the other producers. We managed to charter planes to take the gold to get it refined elsewhere. And that all happened very quickly. So, as I say, 2020, some unique challenges for us. We learned a lot. We managed to keep the business moving and actually achieved a better outturn than we'd expected at the start of the year.
Ghana owns, I believe, 10% carry interest in Golden Star.
Yeah.
So did you pay taxes?
Yes.
Financially. So fiscally, what else did we get? Was there a dividend at some point?
So last year, the main contribution was the taxes we paid and the 5% royalty. So 5% of our revenue directly to the government. So we paid over $60 million to the government last year. So 350 million CD roughly, which for quite a small company was a very meaningful contribution and actually something we're very proud of. Somebody asked me the other day, do you not mind paying tax? Because everybody complains about paying tax. But to me, it actually is a sign that the business was successful. And it's our duty to pay tax if we're successful. So we have no problem. And as I say, we're proud of the outcome and that level of contribution.
So this is corporate taxes?
Corporate taxes, we pay at the standard rate, we pay royalties. So the government actually, and we were speaking to the GRA today, and they recognize the contribution that the sector made to the country as a whole.
Do you plow back profits into developing other mines? Do you do exploration? Or because I know there's a varied list of shareholders who may have different interests.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
So for us, exploring for new deposits is critical because as you continue to mine, eventually if you don't explore, you get to the end of your deposit and your business comes to an end. So like pharmaceutical companies do research and development into new vaccines, new medicines, we have to explore for new deposits of gold. And this year we've doubled our budget for exploration because we think Ghana's got a long history of mining. And I guess the old saying is that the best place to find gold is next to where there already is gold. And there's a lot of prospectivity in Ghana, we think. So we're spending $15 million exploring this year around our mine and regionally. And we would hope to discover the next Wassa and the next mine after that. So that's a real commitment for us.
So there are two concerns, the concern of how long the company stays and how much they get from the mine. So what's the outlook in terms of Golden Star? Because as you say, some mining companies, 10 years they're off, and some have to even be farmed out because they're not productive.
Yeah.
So based on what you've seen, should the people of Wassa say you guys are going to be with us for another, is it 5, 10, 20, 100 years?
Well, I'd sincerely hope it's 100, but I don't think I'll be around then, unfortunately. But we've just done some study work on our mine, which we completed and we published in March this year. Prior to that, we had about a 6-year life defined from the drilling that we'd done. With that study work, we showed we can extend that close to 20 years. And that's a major period of time for an underground mine. Not only that the study showed we can double the output that we're currently getting. So we have the potential for it to be a large, long life asset. And that's going to make a big contribution to everybody involved.
But you had to restructure your balance sheet, and I'm told you had to let go of one of your assets.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so last year at the start of the year, we had 2 mines, Wassa, which we still have, Bogaso Prestea, which we sold at the end of September, which is a much...
2020.
2020.
Okay.
A much smaller mine than Wassa. And we looked at it and said, well, the level of investment that we need to put into Wassa over the next 5 years is about $350 million.
Wow.
And that's going to take all of the resources of us. That's bigger than our current market value. So that's going to use all of our resources that we're going to generate. So the other asset for us was non-core, and there was an opportunity to look at a process to see if others were interested. And we secured the sale of that asset in September last year, as I mentioned.
So the Wassa mine is bigger than the Bogaso Prestea mine?
Much bigger,
That
yeah.
you sold.
Yeah.
So was this a private entity or went back to government?
No, it was sold to a private entity that was setting up a gold business with some individuals who previously had worked for mining companies in Ghana. So they felt very comfortable that Ghana was a good jurisdiction to invest in.
How has Galamsey affected the mining sector generally in Ghana in terms of the well-structured mining companies? Because it's been the biggest topic, arguably, in the past 7 or 6 years. How does Galamsey affect your work?
I don't think it's just Ghana, actually. I think I've worked across the world, and artisanal or small scale, or here Galamsey, are a fact in pretty much every country where mining is present. And bigger companies have to try to learn to coexist, but it can be a problem because if you have businesses that are not regulated, so they're not following the same kind of environmental rules and regulations that we do, health and safety of people that work there, they're putting lives at risk. I think that's a problem that I know the government is very well aware of and is trying to motivate the community mining initiative to better regulate that sector, and we're very supportive of that. And we would hope that that's successful, because otherwise we're compromising, I think, everybody's future if we're mining in an irresponsible way. So the more that can be brought and formalized, I think will be to everybody.
So it's not a question of the scale, it's about whether it's formalized or not. So it can still be small scale mining, but it must be well regulated.
Yeah, and there are many countries where small scale mining exists, and very small scale in some cases, but where it's regulated, so that we're clear what they're doing to the environment, to their people, that ultimately they're paying taxes to the government, so that the government then can help regulate it better. So we believe it can sit alongside large-scale mining like ours, but everybody needs to play to sets of rules.
But do you and other companies of your kind get encroachment? Or is this typically things done in concessions you've finished with? Just want to get a sense of how it works.
We do occasionally see encroachment, much less so now for us because our mine is underground. So it's just very difficult for people to get hundreds of meters below the surface. So it isn't really a major issue for us. And what we did, one of the first things when I took over as CEO that I did was to say, let's look at all of the land that we have rights to. Do we need it all? Do we really need, are we going to explore all of this? And that led to us giving up about 40% of the land we had. Because if the big mining companies are holding all the land and not providing that opportunity for others, then you'll get tension and conflict. So I think that's important as well, that there are concessions available for others that want to work them.
This This is a point of view. We're having a chat with the president and CEO of Golden Star Resources, Andrew Ray, on a wide variety of issues, talking Galamsey, the company's performance, and a unique model they've introduced in Wassa, one of the communities that they work in. Later on, we'll be talking about the latest with the Minister of Health, Sputnik V, and matters arising. I'll be speaking to Duke Mensah-Poku about that. So let's talk about, you say you have 800 direct staff, and then you have another 800 contract workers. How many of these people are from the communities within which you work? How many of them are locals?
So around 60% are classified as from the region. 99% are Ghanaian.
Okay.
So one of the benefits of the industry being well established in Ghana is there's some very good mining skills. So we only have a very, very small number of expats for specific tasks, but as I say, 99% are Ghanaian.
And in terms of your programs for the community, what do you do? What's been happening typically? Because I know you've launched some new things recently.
Yeah.
But what has been what's the typical way a mining company because what I know is, of course, you pay taxes, right? But you're in a community, so you have to do CSR projects. So that's what typically tends to happen. How have you gone about it, and how is it changing?
Yeah. I think typically one of the real achievements of the mining industry and one of its real downfalls is exactly those local relationships. Mining companies have done a huge amount of good over time developing communities and helping skills and capacity building. But likewise, they haven't communicated that very well. And also quite often promises are made that are not delivered. And I've seen this in many countries.
Yep.
And the problem is, I'll do this job for a few years, then someone else will come, and maybe the community says, well, Andrew promised us this, he promised us that. And you have these mismatches of expectations. And that happens everywhere. So what we decided to do to try to get past that and develop the relationship, we negotiated and signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with our local communities to say, right, let's actually just have a document that sets out everything that we're going to do, what's our responsibility as a company, what's your responsibility as a community, and how we're going to work together to make this community better. And that way, you don't have misunderstandings, you don't have broken promises, because it's all detailed, it's written down, and there are committees whose job it is to follow up and make sure.
So what would it, I have a couple of them here. So there's one called MOU Development Foundation, and another one called MOU Relationship and Sustainable Livelihoods. What would a typical MOU like this say? Or what will it cover?
It'll cover a range of things. So, for example, for every ounce of gold we produce, we give $1 to the Development Foundation locally. And then
$1 per ounce?
$1 per ounce. We also give $1 per ounce to our oil palms project that I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But the Development Foundation then has a committee which establishes where are we going to invest this money? What are we going to try to do locally to improve the position of the community, whether that's putting in medical facilities, whether it's helping build classrooms in a school. Last time I was over, I went to site and it was World Tree Day. So I went there and the kids came out and we were planting trees outside classrooms that we helped build. And that's all going to that longer term development. So it sets out all of those projects that we're going to help with. And then in terms of sustainable development, one of the other big mistakes mining companies have made is they've just come in and they've thrown money at what they think's a problem. Well, let's just give the community money and we'll all be happy. And that's the worst thing you can do. Because eventually, as you said, 10, 15 years, the mine goes, the money stops flowing, and the community's in almost a worse position. So what we want to do is actually help build businesses that enable that community to thrive long after we disappear and develop skills and be able to grow those businesses. So,
but who decides which project to invest in?
So that's decided together with the community. So there's representatives from the local community and from the mine site, and then together they decide what should be invested in. And one of our more successful ones that over time we've now developed about 1,500 hectares of oil palm plantations. And Ghana has the perfect conditions for oil palm, and it can also do it sustainably, so without damaging the environment, which is an issue in many countries. So ground that we'd mined, we've revegetated it with oil palms. That business alone now employs another 700 people. They farm, we provide technical expertise, and the yields they get are way superior. Even the other businesses that are large-scale plantations, we get about 25 to 30% better yields than they do through just that technical support. The local chiefs participate in that as well by helping provide land. And it's building skills and businesses that will be there for many, many years to come. So that's just an example of what you can do in a rural community and provide significant employment. Over 30% of those employees are women, which again, for us is critical to ensure both men and women.
So this oil palm company, is it owned by the mine or is owned by the community?
So the land is all owned by the local community, and the company itself really just provides technical oversight, but the farmers farm their own land. So we're just providing the ability to understand the land, the right fertilizers, the right conditions, and then the work is all done and the profits accrue to the local farmers.
Interesting. So this is called GSOP.
GSOP, yeah, it's won awards internationally as well.
Amazing.
As a model project and sustainable project.
One of the biggest concerns people have is environmental sustainability. Couple of things. So in some communities that have had mining, when the mining companies leave, not only do the communities become empty of activity, they leave in their trail a lot of destruction.
Yeah.
All right. Then there are some where, whilst the mining is even going on, all kinds of things are going on, whether it's the noise or it's the chemicals they use, mercury and all those kinds of things. So you seem to be saying we're doing a lot of nice things, you're doing development and stuff, but what are your environmental credentials?
So environmentally, we had 0 environmental incidents last year, none. And for years, we've had no environmental incidents. One of the great benefits of the oil palm I mentioned is that they help to rehabilitate land that was mined. So afterwards, if you went to see it, you would never believe that was once an area that was mined, because it looks just like an oil palm plantation that you would see anywhere. And that's a fantastic use of the land. So it's progressive rehabilitation. So we're doing it whilst we're mining in order to ensure, exactly to your point, that we don't leave this large footprint of mess behind us, but rather we deal with it as we go along and we adhere to the highest standards. That plantation, for example, now acts as a carbon sink. So we all talk about everyone wanting to be carbon neutral and emissions. Well, that's now sucking carbon out of the atmosphere that was never there before in terms of the ability to do that. That's one area that we do, but we do a lot of other work as well in terms of revegetating areas and ensuring that as we mine, we're dealing with that. We've just put a new process plant in that means a lot of the material that we take from underground, we're now able to crush, mix with cement, and then place that back underground again so that we don't disturb the surface and underground is more stable. And that's the first plant of that type in Ghana to be able to do that. So there's some real innovations going on. And I would say it was built last year. The expats that were due to come to help build it couldn't come. It was built entirely by Ghanaians. So again, I think that's something to be proud of.
A couple of final points. Recently at the mining summit in Africa, they were discussing how now the value in mining for countries like Ghana is no longer the ore and the taxes, but the linkages with suppliers and small companies, right? So just give me a sense of whether that's a priority for you. How many of your inputs or whatever you use, would you use local-based companies? And what specific training or support do you give them to enable them meet the standards, for example?
Yeah, it's a critical point for us, and it's really important for the industry. Last year, I mean, you asked about 2020. I think what last year showed us was that if you rely on just importing everything, that's pretty tough in a pandemic, and your business won't work. Over 80% of our supply base comes from Ghana. So last year, that was another reason why we could continue with relatively little interruption.
Okay.
And it makes sense as a business. The risk of trying to import something from the other side of the world, freight rates for shipping have gone through the roof, so the cost of doing that. When you can source locally and remove those risks makes all the sense in the world. And then we help to get those companies to the standards that we need, which in turn enables them to go and look for other customers and other clients because they've improved the quality of their product. So as much as we can, as I say, it's already 80% and growing, we will try to source within Ghana.
Finally, what's the outlook like for the company and for the sector?
I think for the company, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a big project to develop the Wassa mine, to grow it, to double our output, give us a long life, a lot of investment, a lot of hard work, but it's exciting. And I hope we'll have a bit of fun along the way as well as just being exciting. And for the sector, I think if it can continue to understand the benefits of working and living with its community, with governments, and that it's a guest there, and as a guest you should always behave well, then I think it can get better appreciation for the job it's doing and continue to be a good contributor.
Thank you. We wish you well. Andrew Ray is the president and CEO of Golden Star Resources. 20 years in Ghana, doing some new exciting things as part of a conversation we've been having on the mining sector. This is still the point of view. Take a short break. When we come back, we're talking about the latest with the Minister for Health and the Sputnik V vaccine, the committee's work, and increasing calls for the minister to be sacked. He's taking a 2-week leave. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Mama Josie. Fe.
Different era, better result. Time has changed and time has brought Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. Healthy gums, anti-cavity, fresher breath, and it whitens teeth. Kel Chocolate Toothpaste. Sankofa.
Yenchi, Kel Chocolate Toothpaste.
Happy smile.
Good Day Energy Drink keeps you going. Available in major supermarkets and shops near you. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to your health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advert is FDA approved.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Madame. Et voilà.
Babe, what is this?
This is the escargot. And the foie gras. Oui.
Where did she go?
You pa one kasa who say oba say your pay fear eh?
It's been long since you ever felt like this.
Welcome to the best in Ghanaian entertainment on Aquaba Magic. Welcome home to Aquaba Magic on DSTV channel 150. It's your moment. DSTV.
Welcome back to The Point of View. We're still talking Sputnik V, and the latest information we have, of course, I think this came from yesterday. The Minister for Health has been allowed a 2-week leave for personal reasons. But how did we get here? Duke Mensah Opoku, a CTFM, CTTV's parliamentary correspondent, has been following the story since it broke, and he will be giving us a quick chronological overview of where we are so far. So, Duke, welcome.
Thank you, Ghana.
So, there's a lot of pressure on the government to sack the minister. In fact, one of the hashtags, Ajimamenu must go to jail and all of this. This leave that he's on, what do we know about it?
Well, I would say it's a novelty in terms of our governance. Probably for the life of me in the Fourth Republic, this is the first time we are hearing publicly that the minister has been granted leave by the Chief of Staff for personal reasons. Usually, we know, of course, the Chief of Staff must. The last time we heard of such a directive was when, because of COVID, there was a blanket ban on flying out of the country. But here is the case. We have the Chief of Staff granting the minister a 2-week leave for personal reasons. Of course, obviously they are personal, so we cannot know why. Others are reading meanings.
And we told he began the leave last week.
Yes, and
which is interesting because the report came out last week
on Friday, but the issues had been crystallizing from the time he appeared before the committee, and we knew that the committee had to present its report in Parliament before the House went on recess. And we are aware of, for want of a better word, all sorts of horse trading that went on in the committee to ensure that the committee came up with a consensus report, a report which was all embracing and in fact reflected the opinions of the minority and the majority.
Not as a consensus, as against like a
minority and a majority, because at least the last time we had such an ad hoc committee set up was the cash for seat. We had a minority report and a majority report. The minority report was far different from the majority report. So I think the leadership of this committee, Afenyo Marking and Akando, tried as much as possible not to take us back to the cash for seat situation where we have a majority report and a minority report, but we have one harmonized report. And because of that, this report that we've seen, we know that it was changed a lot of times, because even after the public hearings that we saw, the committee had to go back and work behind the scenes to bring us this report, which was debated on the floor of Parliament, which has not been approved yet, though, because the second deputy speaker deferred action in voting on the report till when they come back in October.
We'll come to the report shortly, but before that, there's been a lot of clamor for the minister to be sacked. Can you tell me some of the groups or individuals who've been making these calls and how loud these calls have been?
So, the first would be from Parliament itself, the minority. In fact, the minority's wish was for the report to be amended on the floor of Parliament. And this was articulated by the minority chief whip for a very long time, a long time serving member of the Health Committee, Mutaka Mubarak, who moved on the floor of the House that it should be incorporated in the recommendations of the report that Ajimamenu should be sacked by the President, or the minority or the House should initiate a vote of censure, an elaborate process provided for by in Article 82, which requires that all members of Parliament would vote in support of a motion to remove him from office. 2/3, but you need 2/3 majority for that to pass. That would be like 183, 184 in our current parliamentary structure. So that's within Parliament. Outside Parliament, we've had Occupy Ghana, we've had the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, we've had Human Rights and Governance Center, Martin Pebu, who is
so a lot of civil society groups
who is
asking for his
gathering signatures for Mr. Ajimamenu to be tried on perjury.
Are you serious?
Yes, he is gathering signatures.
So beyond the clamor for dismissal, there's a signature campaign for perjury.
Yes.
How so? What are their reasons?
Because he's saying that Mr. Ajimamenu told the committee on oath that only the money that had been paid to Al Maktoum was for just the 20,000 doses of Sputnik V that had been supplied. A sample, because of course he needed that 15,000 and then later 5,000. They needed to pay for that. That's the only payment that he's aware of. And as far as he can recollect, no monies had been paid. Later on, the committee wrote to the Minister of Finance, Bank of Ghana, Controller and Accountant General Department, and then found out that $2.8 million had been paid to Sheikh Al Maktoum. If that is true, then it means that the minister was not honest before the committee, because he was well aware of the payment, but then decided to tell the committee that he was only aware of the payment of only 10,000.
But did the committee deal with the issue of his comment about not knowing payment had been made and the subsequent realization that actually payment had been made? Did the report deal with that?
It didn't really get deeply into that, but what we know is that the Minister for Health later provided to the committee additional information that subsequent to his appearance, he had discovered that contrary to what he had said before the committee, actually the Finance Minister and the Controller and Accountant General had issued directives for some $2.8 million to be paid, which, if we are to take what he is saying as the truth, it would mean that that payment was done on his blind side. But people like Martin Pebu argue that that is not possible, because for the Minister of Finance and for government to have raised a letter of credit or letters of credit to the tune of $2.8 million, you cannot do that on the blind side of a health minister, even if you're a finance minister. So there's the perjury angle as well. But
has the finance minister come under any fire, or this is just the health minister?
The finance minister has come under fire. I mean, that has been in the last 48 hours. From social media, from Twitter, there's also a hashtag for the finance minister to also resign.
Wow.
Yes.
Over the same issue?
Over the same issue. The communications officer of the NDC, Sam Jemfi, has also issued a statement indicating that the real person for him who needs to be tackled in this issue is the finance minister. There's also ASEPA, who's also saying that, and there's also Coalition for Social Justice, who are saying that, in fact, the health minister is not the person in here, because he is not the one who paid the money. It's the finance minister who did that. In fact, the recommendations also pointed out not to the health minister, but to the finance minister to take steps to recover the $2.8 million that had been paid.
Let's talk about the repayment.
Yes.
Because it's been reported that the minister had written to the sheikh to do a payment, and the sheikh had agreed to do this.
Yeah.
What do we know about this?
So in a letter dated 2nd August, the Minister for Health wrote to Sheikh Al Maktoum requesting for a refund of the money, subsequent to some correspondence that we are privy to, email correspondence between Alhaji Noah Yusuf, who is the Director of Legal Affairs at the Ministry of Health, and Karamut, who is the lawyer for Sheikh Al Maktoum. Now, subsequent to that letter, there was a response from Sheikh Al Maktoum dated 5th August 2021, which I would read verbatim. Says, "Dear Honorable Minister, we acknowledge receipt of your letter dated 2nd August with a formal request to refund the remaining amount of the non-supplied doses from the 50% advance transferred to our accounts. As per our records, we have received the following." Then he goes to break it down into a table. 50% advance received through letter of credit, not drawn. That's, okay, so for total amount of 300,000 doses, which we agreed. Initially wanted to buy 3.4 million, then it came down to 300,000. That would have amounted to $5.7 million. So the 50% of the $5.7 million was 2.8. And then 50% received in our accounts, 2.8 million, which is the amount of money was wired, minus amount for 20,000 doses supplied. The 20,000 doses would amount to $380,000. So if you do the math, balance amount to be refunded to government of Ghana, $2.470 million. We hereby request to kindly acknowledge and confirm the above mentioned amounts to be refunded, further to which we shall initiate the refund process to your bank account. Please share with us the bank details where the refund needs to be processed. So thank you, sincerely signed with his seal. So he's done all the arithmetic, put together a table and said and asked the Minister for Finance, the Health Minister, because this is addressed to him, provide the details as where this should be refunded to. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the committee. So is it the fact that this got to the committee that it became news, or was this already a big story before it got to the committee? How did Parliament get involved in all of this?
So the minority has been on they've been on a path to get an audit of how the COVID monies have been spent.
Okay.
They've been on that for quite a while now, even in the 7th Parliament, because they wrote to the Auditor General to commission a special audit. That did not see the light of day. So when this story broke from VG, the Norwegian newspaper, 6 members of Parliament decided, as a follow-up, part of their oversight responsibility, 6 of them decided to come under the aegis of a private member's motion. They filed that private member's motion. These are the 6 people. Alhaji Muntaka Mubarak, Minority Chief Whip, long-standing member of the Health Committee, MP for Asawase. Kwabena Minta Akando, MP Jaboso, ranking member on Health. Dr. Sebastian Sandari, MP for Dafiama Busie Issa, member of the Health Committee, medical doctor. Samuel Okuyeto Ablakwa, MP North Tongue, ranking member on Foreign Affairs. Obviously, there's a Foreign Affairs dimension to this because of the Russian government and all of that. Then there's Dr. Kednawani, who is Kwabena Minta Akando's deputy, ranking member on the Health Committee.
Also a medical doctor.
Also a medical doctor, MP for Nabdam. Then there's Ernest Henry Nogbe, MP for Ashaiman. He's a procurement guy. Used to run procurement at NADMO before he got into Parliament. Member of Interior and Defense. So these are the 6 guys who came together and filed this motion. It was agreed upon, debated on the 8th of July, and the Speaker decided, with the leadership of the House, to form a 9-member committee, 5 from the majority, 4 from the minority. These are the members: Alexander Kwamina Fenyo-Makin, lawyer, deputy majority leader, MP for Efutu; Kwabena Minta Akando, who is the
ranking member
on for the minority on Health now; Bernard Ahiafo, lawyer. He's also Akachi South. Yes. He's also the ranking member on Constitutional Legal Affairs. He replaced Ines Afsini in that role. Then there's Kwame Anyimedu-Entwi, who is a member of the committee, MP for Asante Achim Central, Skonongus MP. He's a lawyer. He is currently the chairman of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee. Then there's Dr. Nana Ayuefri, MP of Ijasia Sokore, medical doctor, public health, economic policy management. He's there. Then there's Ernest Nogbe. Yeah, we mentioned him earlier. Then there's Elizabeth Ofosu-Ejare, human rights lawyer, MP for Techima North, also there. Then there's Umar Farouk Aliyu Mahama, END procurement guy at Cocoa Board before he came to Parliament. And then there's Sheila Bartels, MP for Ablekuma North, business executive on the finance committee.
And what were their terms of reference?
This 7 terms of reference in all. To determine whether a transaction with respect to the procurement and supply of the vaccines between the government and Sheikh Al Maktoum and SL Global, which seems to have been missing all of it. SL Global was also part of it.
Which is a local company.
Which is a local company. Qualifies as an international business or economic transaction under 1815 of the Constitution, and if so, whether it was subjected to prior approval by Parliament. 2, to determine whether the procurement process was followed and the propriety of same. 3, to determine whether the services of a middleman were procured in the transaction, and if so, the propriety of same, having regard to relevant laws. 4, to ascertain the cost of the vaccines, the justification of the cost, the transaction guaranteed value for money for Ghana. 5, to determine whether any consideration has been passed from the government of the Republic of Ghana to the middleman and the suppliers or any other person in respect of the transaction. 6, to determine whether the Minister for Health misled Parliament during the consideration of the transaction for the procurement of the vaccine. And 7, to inquire into any other matter connected with the intended purchase and supply of the Sputnik V vaccine in the agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana and the private office of
I see. And from what we know, they found out that this was an international transaction.
Breaching 1815.
Because it didn't go to Parliament. Cabinet was not aware. PPA had not given the clearance.
They took it to PPA after the agreement had been signed. And as we speak, PPA has not ratified it.
So the committee found that he hadn't gone through all these prior approvals.
Yes.
Although PPA could later on investigate to see if the sole source contract was
proper.
I see.
Yeah.
What about whether the minister's comment about not knowing the payment had been made? Did they investigate that too?
Well, they said that after the minister said so and so before the committee, they wrote to verify the minister's comments. And then they got a correspondence from the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, that in fact this amount had been paid. Later on, the Minister of Health wrote back and said, I said this before the committee, but subsequent to that, I've discovered new information that actually some amount has been paid.
This is interesting.
Yeah, very
so it looks like the committee got answers to the questions they were looking for.
Yes.
But their conclusions did not recommend punishment for the minister.
Yes, because, and they state it here, in their conclusion, says that, as already stated, the committee found that the Ministry of Health did not comply with the requirements of 1815 in respect of the agreement with Mrs. Al Maktoum. The minister said that he did this, or he did that, because of the exigencies of the time when COVID-19 posed public health crisis with the highest fatalities, and there was urgent global search for vaccines. And at that material time, the agreement was signed. All government-to-government sources had failed, as the bilateral source had communicated to the ministry that they were only to be delivered in August 2021. Suffice to say that the bilateral sources did not include Russia, since Ghana had no arrangement with Russia. Okay, so that was with regards to why the minister did what he did and decided to flagrantly disregard all the approvals, all the checks and balances that were supposed to have been put through. So it looks like, in a way, they sort of, without stating it clearly, sort of bought the explanation that the minister was given, that these are all, we know all these rules and regulations. But there was also a part
that said that Parliament could have met in a day.
Yes.
To give approval. So in essence, they didn't really agree with the minister when he says this was an emergency and I could not go through Parliament. They were saying that Parliament has the ability to approve this quickly.
Yes, and that even if you had decided, even not through the whole Parliament, even if you had decided to meet with the Health Committee of Parliament and discuss this with them, at least some sort of resolution could have been reached instead of him taking that, unanimous decision to go through with this agreement.
Whatever the occasion, with ATL, you can never be out of style. ATL, bringing fabric to life.
Hello there. We know what matters today, don't we? Hurry up. Follow safety measures. Drive for hours. Grab a perfect spot. Park smoothly. And then visit another shop and scroll for the opportunities. Tap to pay. Enjoy that extra reward. Get 10% extra cashback when you pay with Visa. How you pay must...
Good Day Energy Drink keeps you going. Available in major supermarkets and shops near you. Excessive drinking can be detrimental to your health. Not recommended for persons under 18 years, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and people sensitive to caffeine. This advert is FDA approved.
So, where does all of this leave us?
Well, now, first, the report has to be adopted. We don't know if the report will be adopted in its current shape and form. What that means is that because when the speaker gave them the mandate to go and do the work, he was not giving them to just go and do the work and just let it be like that. He was supposed to bring it back to the House for input before they approve.
But the report doesn't have any conclusion that recommends any punishment for the minister.
That is what Muntaka was trying to do by suggesting what he thinks. Some members of the committee have also argued. I've heard Bernard Ayafo argue that they are a fact-finding committee, so they were just supposed to find the facts, bring it to the House, and let the House take it.
Did the terms of reference say they should recommend appropriate punishment?
It expressly did not say so. That's to inquire into any other matter connected with the intended purchase and supply. So that could be any other matter anyway. But if you look at
it would have said that to recommend appropriate punishment,
sanctions,
where it did not say that.
There's no sanctions regime clearly here.
So the committee may be hiding under that.
Under that to say that they were just a fact-finding committee. But from what Muntaka did on the floor of the parliament, he was trying to say that the minister has to be sanctioned. If you listen to Afenyo Markin's argument on the night, what he said was that they found all of these things. He disregarded everything. But he should go and sin no more, essentially, that in future, at least we can do this under a certificate of urgency, so come back to parliament. And Muntaka says, no, this should be a point for us to, this should be a time for us to make a certain point out there to public officials. And so we should recommend that the president sacks him or we pass a vote of censure against him. So it remains to be seen when they come back in October as to what they would really do with this report.
What's your prediction? Would he still be minister when they come back in October?
Between now and October is a very long time. That's like 2 months. If the pressure keeps going the way it is going, the president may have to act. Because in addition to the fact that they have to adopt this report, Martin Pebu's signature campaign is also gaining grounds.
That he should be
tried for perjury under Parliament.
By the Attorney General?
Yes, by Parliament itself, it becomes a contempt privileges matter.
Wow.
Yes, so privileges committee should take up the matter.
If the committee did not find out that he lied, how does Mr. Kwebu conclude that?
It is up to Mr. Kwebu to plead his case when it comes before the privileges committee. That because of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow.
If you put all of that together, the combined effect, in my view, is that the gentleman or the minister told lies. So based on that and based on Parliament Act 1965 and all the other issues and the chronology of the matters at hand, he is liable for perjury.
So he's on leave?
Yes, for 2 weeks, of which he spent 1 week already.
What's the feeling among MPs in Parliament about him?
You speak to some of them, they feel disappointed that a man of Ajimamenu's stature could make such fundamental mistakes. Let me put it that way.
Wow.
But there are others who are also saying that, well, under COVID, I mean, because Parliament itself in the last Parliament, 7th Parliament, did not even go on break. They were on standby because COVID is like a national emergency, like we are in a war zone, so we should pardon him. So it's essentially divided. But there are a lot of people who feel disappointed that the man of Ajimamenu's gravitas, with his experience on public accounts committee, chartered marketing accountant, or chartered management accountant, and all the knowledge that he has, he shouldn't be making such mistakes.
We'll see how it turns out. Thank you very much, Duke Mensah Opoku. So those were the details of this very controversial story, which is still a running discussion. Thank you for watching. In our earlier part, we spoke to Andrew Ray of Golden Star Resources, a mining company, and then later on, we gave you the latest on the Sputnik V work, the vaccines that never came, the refund, and increasing calls for the minister to resign. Thank you for watching. We'll be with you next time. The Business Dashboard is next. Stay with CCTV. Goodbye.